you have any idea?
I don't think, we have no idea. No clue at all. Howdy! Are you going to hug me?
Oh, look at my hat.
God, what is this?
Yeah.
I thought you were from Connellsburg.
I'm glad you got gas for me and maybe.
I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to fill the tank with gas and make sure that all the tires were, for God's sake.
So if I can get everybody's attention, we were having some discussions during the season about some of those folks who have spent a long time on the beat and had some really distinguished careers. You know, people who have, you know, been here quite a while. And so what we came up with was that we'd like to remember those folks who have had very distinguished careers in Penn State. So what we did is we have created a plaque, which, Greg, if you help me with the unveiling, for 25 years of service to the Penn State football media beat. We appreciate all that you guys do for us, and we know that we try to have the best relationship that we can with you guys and appreciate everything. But we did want to give a special shout out to John Black, who is finishing his 45th season as the editor of the Penn State Football Letter. So really wanted to thank everybody.
Welcome to Football Letter Live. This week we welcome former football graduate assistant and Lion ambassador Matt Fleischacker, who's currently coaching at Hobart College in Geneva, New York. We'll also catch up with Football Letter editor John Black, whose name was included on a commemorative plaque in Beaver Stadium's press box. John was recognized during a special pregame ceremony before the home finale against Rutgers, and he shares his thoughts on that moment as well as reflecting on this season. Football Letter Live is member supported, and we're so grateful for your support. If you're a Penn Stater, you belong in the Alumni Association. And if you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Well, welcome into Football Letter Live. I am your host, Paul Clifford. As always, I'm joined by John Petishnock. John, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Paul. Glad to be with you. Glad and thankful for everyone tuning in. Glad to have Vince as our producer. So just, feeling good about the Outback Bowl announcement and ready to have another good show with you tonight.
Absolutely. A big day here at Penn State, a groundbreaking day in so many different ways as we welcome new university president Neely Bandasputi, and we look forward to working with her on behalf of Penn State and our alumni. Neely comes to us from Louisville, where she has been the president since 2018. Prior to that, she was the provost and executive vice president at the University of Kansas. It looks like we have a great hire, as Matt Schuyler put it, John, the total package and what we were looking for the next president of the Pennsylvania State University.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have a resume like her, you can go anywhere you want. You know, you've got an impressive background, and she talked about the specialness of the Penn State community today during her introductory press conference. She gave her first "We Are" cheer. She talked about being the president here is a sacred trust, and so I think that was very well put. But yeah, absolutely. She'll start sometime in the spring. University isn't sure yet. It'll coincide with, Dr. Barron's retirement next year. And yeah, absolutely look forward to working with her and introducing her to the largest alumni base in the world. Absolutely.
Absolutely. She, you oftentimes talk with coaches, right? How do they do in the press conference? Did they win the press conference? I think she won the announcement today, was poised, inspired, positivity and confidence. And I think, Penn State alumni all around the world are excited and can't wait to see what her presidency will hold for our university.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about, diversity and inclusion. I think having people from diverse backgrounds is helpful. That will influence what we do here and inform us what we do here. And I believe our Lion ambassadors are giving her a campus tour tomorrow morning. And so we'll have a direct connection with her, and I'm sure that the students will do a really good job of representing the Alumni Association and showing her all around campus and the creamery, and I'm sure she'll pick out her favorite spots before too long.
Absolutely. Well, hey, speaking of Lion ambassadors, we have a former Lion ambassador joining us on the show tonight. Matt Fleischacker is with us. He is in the green room in the studio getting nourished before our show. John Black. We have a special segment with John, the legendary editor of the Football Letter, now in his 46th season of writing the Football Letter. John, I was watching the video in the opening, and I've seen it like a half dozen times now, and I was tearing up a little bit because you could hear the audio a lot clearer and the interplay between the family, and just how special that moment was for him. I know he's going to mention that later in the show.
Yeah, so we sat down with John earlier in the week. We had about a 40-minute discussion. We're going to share the entire discussion tomorrow on Facebook. Our audience tonight will hear about 15 minutes of it. And John talks about that ceremony and having his family there. It elevated a special moment to, that's a story that they're going to tell in their family for generations to come. And John is so humble. And I can't believe that was the first time his wife, Vita K, was in the press box. I just can't believe he didn't go up there at some point, even in the off season. And so I asked John specifically, when you walked into the press box and you saw Vita K standing there, I mean, I feel like you could have just like touched him on the shoulder and, you could have knocked him over. Yeah. And his son, Brian, was there. And it was, I mean, knowing John, like so many alumni do, and, seeing his genuine reaction, he's just a guy who loves Penn State. That's such a wonderful Penn State family. And, just so happy for them to have that moment. And you'll hear more from John here in a couple minutes.
Well, look, John and Vita K are Penn State icons, right? Their love story is legendary. You could tell, John, when he walked into the room, he immediately saw her, and it was like there was no one else in the room, right? He didn't notice his daughter who had traveled from Michigan, or his other daughter who came up from the Lancaster area. I mean, it was like the two of them were alone. It was really touching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, John's family did a great job with us with making it a secret. His son Brian got him up in the press box, early enough so that he would be there. And they were talking about, I guess his wife, or I guess Vita K, said she was going to McConnellsburg, and he got up at 5 a.m. And he's like, I got up at 5 a.m. I made sure that, and of course, John, being protective, making sure he's taking care of his family, checking out the car, the tires, the air pressure, making sure that there's gas in the car. Right. And then, it was, I mean, that's such a genuine moment, and it just comes across like it's a movie, but that's their family. And I hadn't thought about it that way before, Paul, but you're right. When he walked in and saw Vita K, walked right over to her. And as our colleague Ryan Jones pointed out, when he saw the plaque, his first reaction was to see, Ridge Riley's name, which was on there too. And so, just an awesome Penn State. In my experience, the people who are the most deserving of moments like that are the ones who are most humble and try not to bring the attention to themselves. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful moment that John had with his family being there.
Absolutely. Well, John, a lot going on at the Alumni Association. The big announcement of the Outback Bowl sprung our colleagues into action to put together travel packages and try to plan events so that our trip to the Outback Bowl is one that will be memorable for many Penn Staters. The ticket sale is ongoing. It's going really strong from what I understand. The packages, the initial set of travel packages sold out. We were able to get another group of 40 rooms. I believe there's about 20 rooms left in that second package that we were able to put together. And so we encourage all Penn Staters, go visit our website at alumni.psu.edu to find out more information on how you can take part in everything going on at the Outback Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a game day page that we have been promoting this year. So Penn Staters know how they can cheer on the Nittany Lions this fall. If you just go to our website, like Paul said, /game day, that's where we're going to have everything updated. We have the volunteer event coming up. I know that's one of your favorite events throughout the year. And for all the angst around Penn State football this year, 5th straight year going to either a New Year's Six Bowl or a New Year's Day Bowl. And so, I was talking with John, you might not think 7-5 record would get us into a New Year's Day Bowl, but that speaks to the power of Penn State football. They know fans and alumni are going to travel. Florida is actually the state, I believe, where we have our most active alumni chapters. And so you got to believe, that, for a lot of our Penn Staters, that's a manageable trip. And so from that standpoint, great to go to Tampa, not having to go, to the Midwest or out west to Vegas. And so I think having the bowl in Tampa will really allow Penn State to end the season in a way where they're going to, it's not unreasonable to think it's going to feel like a semi-home game. I know Arkansas is geographically closer, but Penn Staters are going to come out in full force, and that's going to be, I think that's going to actually be a really nice end to the season where maybe things didn't go our way, but I think things can end nicely for them.
John, we're going to hear a lot of Woo Pig Suey in the stadium down there at Raymond James Stadium. Arkansas is closer. It's their first bowl game since 2016. Their first Florida Bowl since 2006. So I think they're gonna show up strong. They're gonna bring Tusk, which is their live mascot, a spectacle for sure that our friends from Arkansas will put on. But I'm looking forward to the trip. There's a lot going on at the Alumni Association in addition to the bowl game, right? Show some gratitude to our members and our donors for their wonderful support on Giving Tuesday and on Cyber Monday. A record-breaking day on Giving Tuesday in terms of the Alumni Association's campaign and the university's efforts on Giving Tuesday, almost $1.3 million raised on Giving Tuesday. You know, whenever we put that ask out, Penn Staters continue to rise up for their university.
Yeah, you know, talking to the letterman and our guests this season, they talk about the appreciation that they have for Penn State and the impact that the university has had on them. And, you know, most, if not all of our alumni, I think would say the same thing. And they recognize that. They recognize the importance of having future generations have those same experiences. And so, you know, there's power in numbers, as you know. And, you know, when we put, you know, those initiatives out, you know, Penn Staters give back because they know that they're helping, you know, the current or the future generation of students who are going to come to Penn State, swell our fame even greater. And but certainly it's heartwarming, even in tough economic times.
Right.
You know, the generosity of Penn Staters can always be depended upon.
Absolutely. Well, hey, later in the show, we're going to bring Vince Longaro, our producer, out right for his segment. You don't want to miss that. Stay till the end of the show. But Vince has been doing a wonderful job helping us to produce the People of Penn State podcast. We had a great interview today with Mandy Marcourt. Mandy's a cyclist. She's an Olympic hopeful. She's a student she was a graduate of Penn State Lehigh Valley, which is a hotbed for cycling in the United States. She's a World Campus student. So if you're looking for some more great stories about Penn Staters and the impact that they're having, check out the People of Penn State podcast on our website today. Also, football letter, we got another edition coming up on Saturday, December 11th. So make sure you're checking your email inbox for another football letter that'll come out. We won't have the Monday version this week, but the Saturday version, talking about everything that we're doing, getting ready for the bowl. It'll have a link where you can rewatch this show over and over and hear and see all the great things that we talk about on Football Letter Live each week. But John, the football letter, people are looking forward to that in their inbox every week.
Yeah, I think that's we started sending that last year, and I think that's a really nice addition to what historically has been a very valued member benefit, the Saturday game day email. So it'll have a link for this episode. We've also got some blog stories. We've got some videos. And so even though Penn State doesn't play for another couple weeks, we've got you covered. That will come out this Saturday. We're also planning on sending a game day email the day of the game, January 1st. And so we're working on some additional videos. I know Vince is working on a blog preview. We're going to look back at Penn State's history in the Outback Bowl. And so, yeah, absolutely. Check your email Saturday morning. We've got you covered with all kinds of football content to hold you over until the Outback Bowl. And then January 1, get you prepped for the game with even more from us. And we want to make sure that we know how special people view John and the football letter. And the more that we can get the football letter in front of people and, you know, members, non-members, hopefully non-members see, you know, the value that's there and they want to get it on Mondays throughout the season. So yeah, Saturday morning, check your email. We'll have you covered.
Absolutely. Well, John, you had the chance to catch up with John Black to talk about this season, to talk about that ceremony. And we're excited to bring that interview to you right here on Football Letter Live.
Hey everyone, good evening. Thanks for joining us on Football Letter Live. I am John Petishnock, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to be welcoming in a legendary editor of the Football Letter, John Black, for an exclusive conversation tonight. John is wrapping up his 46th season on the beat, and notably, we got back out on the road with John this fall after last year's COVID season, and so we're going to talk with John about, you know, what stands out to him about this season with the Nittany Lions, what it's been like to connect with alumni chapters on the road this season. And we're also going to go behind the scenes with John and ask him about a special pregame ceremony that happened before the home finale against Rutgers. John was honored in the press box. His name, along with Ridge Riley's, is included on a commemorative plaque recognizing press media corps members who have covered the team for 25 plus years. John's family was there. We know that was a special moment for him. And we're going to talk to him about that and a whole lot more. Welcome to Football Letter Live, John Black. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm feeling great, John. So I said, be here with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we've said, you know, anytime we go anywhere, fans, alumni know you. You're wrapping up your 46th season. You know, what has kept you motivated over all these years and has kept your enthusiasm high for Penn State football?
just a great love for Penn State and the great experience I had as a student, and the rest of my life. I've just been a lifelong Penn Stater. Graduated in 1962. Went away for 8 years and then had the opportunity to come back in 1970 and be the deputy director of the Alumni Association. And it was just a few years after that, when Ridge Riley passed away, that they asked me to take over the football editor. And I said, well, I'd give it a try for a year or two. And you see what happened. But no, I've loved Penn State football, loved the people involved with it, the athletes, the coaches, and the how they've represented Penn State as a university, because that's the big factor, and the one that's always been paramount in my mind is being a good representative of the university. So
Yeah,
I guess that's what's kept me going. But at 84 years old, I'm beginning to run a little low on gas.
well, you couldn't tell. Anytime we go on the road, John walks into a room, like everyone else stops. As soon as we'll be talking with John when we walk into a room, and before you know it, a crowd starts to emerge, and they don't want to talk to us. They want to talk to John. And so we step aside and let them have their moment with John. So you talk about representing the university. You certainly have done that. There was a special moment for you a few weeks ago in the Beaver Stadium press box. We shared a video. There was a commemorative plaque unveiled before the game. Your name is on there for being on the beat for 25 plus years. But really notably, like, your family was there. Vita K was there. Your 3 children was there. What did that moment mean for you?
Well, it meant a lot to be have my name added to that plaque, along with great names like Ridge Riley and Fran Fisher, Bill Fisher, Ronnie Christ, and I'm sure through the years there'll be a lot more added to that list. I'm sorry I was dressed so poorly. This whole thing was a surprise, a total surprise. But first thing my wife asked me afterwards, why didn't you shave? I said, I've never shaved for going to a football game, for crying out loud. Like, I didn't know anything was going on when they made an announcement that there was going to be a ceremony here in a few minutes for all the press to gather around this lobby. I didn't pay any attention because I was showing my son around the press box, and he had to tug at my arm to get me over there in the first place. But it was a wonderful, just a very moving and a very enjoyable experience. And what made it absolutely perfect was the big surprise of all of my family being there. None of them had ever been in the press box before. I'm sure my wife wondered what I did for 46 years. Every time I said, well, I see you after the game. But I did indeed spend it in the press box, at least all the home games, and the away press boxes at the away games as well. But so, as I say, I apologize for my appearance at that point in time. I didn't wear my best finery because I had no idea what was taking place. But it is indeed an honor to be listed up there with the names of so many great individuals who have covered Penn State for at least 25 years or longer, and are now retiring. But those are the two qualifications: the 25-year tenure and stepping aside, which I'm doing both here. So it was very, very meaningful. They all loved seeing the press box. So it was an interesting experience for them. And that was just a very, very moving time for me up there.
Yeah, so for everyone listening, and John's family helped us keep this a surprise, and so your son Brian got you up in the press box in
Right.
time to make sure
Right.
that you were there. I actually ran into you and Brian. I was out getting some video of outside the stadium, so your family helped keep it a surprise. So in the press box, you talked about the significance of your family being there. When Brian brought you over and you saw Vita K there and your whole family standing there, what was going through your mind when you saw Vita K standing in the press box?
Well, the thing that was going through my mind was how many times she was complaining about never being in the press box or seeing it, and I just said, well, it wasn't appropriate. It's not a place where you bring family members to get in the way of the reporting literati up there. It's there for a reason. The press box has its reason, and it's not a place we want to be dealing with visitors. So I was pleasantly surprised that she finally got her opportunity to see it. Now, she didn't stay around once again. Once the ceremony and everything was over and they got a good chance to browse around, they left the box before the game began and went to better seating arrangements, shall we say. But I was just so pleased that not only she, but our three children all had the same experience up there. It was wonderful. And they could see that I haven't been lying to them for the last 46 years.
The one thing, just kind of tying up this conversation, and John, I mean, with your job, there's a lot of traveling, there's a lot of late nights. Just wondering, coaches and players always talk about family support with what they do. Is that the same case with you in terms of kind of like just having that family support and knowing that, you've got to travel and there are late nights and they're supporting you all these years?
Absolutely. I started this in the bicentennial year of 1976, which was the same year that those two youngest children that you saw there were born. They were babies when I started going away every weekend, where my weekends suddenly became total absorption, just like the weekdays at work. And I wasn't around to help at all with raising them in the fall. Fortunately, our older daughter, who was 5 years older, was a great help to Vita K. And I tried to help as much as I could the rest of the year, but certainly for the four months in the fall during football season, I wasn't much help at all. So their support meant an awful lot. And she always reminded me how I wasn't there helping raising the younger kids, but our oldest daughter, Vanessa, just was a wonderful help. She was like a young mother to the twins as well, helping out with them. But yes, nobody can have a job, whether it's paid or voluntary, like mine was for 46 years, that takes them away from their family and not have that strong family support that has to be there. And they have done a wonderful job of it all these years. And in addition to entertaining alumni, every home football weekend, our home has been crowded with alumni, a lot of fraternity brothers and their families and classmates. They were alumni that, to a great extent, are still of my age, my vintage, have been longtime life friends. But then through the years, we meet a lot more alumni that have been involved from time to time in our hosting activities on every home football Saturday. And so, but Vita K has put so much effort into that through all those years, and our kids helped out a lot too. So it's just been a family affair in that regard.
Turning our attention to this year's bowl game, the Outback Bowl, like some people might be surprised, 7-5 team going to the Outback Bowl New Year's Day. But to your point, the Outback Bowl knows Penn Staters will travel. They know that they'll provide a great atmosphere. So let's talk about the Outback Bowl for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
outside of the game, what are you looking forward to with the upcoming trip and going to Tampa and spending New Year's Day with Penn Staters?
Well, looking forward to warm weather down in Tampa, and a great time for the fans that are traveling to see the team. And I hope it's an enjoyable experience for them all, as so many bowl games have been through these years. We've gone to a bowl in 95% of the years that I've covered Penn State football. So it's always a great time. I'm looking for a good experience, fun in the sun for a few days for the Penn Staters who travel to the game, and looking forward to the team putting together its best game of the year, and coming back, capping off the season with a victory over the 22nd ranked and very tough Arkansas squad that we haven't played before. So it's going to be a new experience, and all those things just make it great, make it memorable. We've won 3 out of the 4 times we've been in the Outback Bowl, losing only the last time to Florida, but having beaten Auburn and Kentucky and Tennessee in our first 3 trips to the Outback Bowl. We have a good record there, and it's been a good bowl for us, and the fans have had a great time every time, including the first time there in 1996, the year, 95, I believe was, the year after the great 1994 team, undefeated, which should have been our 3rd national champion team, of course. So we went down there and played in the old Saddleback Stadium. This was before Raymond James Stadium had been built. Saddleback Stadium they went to the highest point along the 50-yard line where the best seats are and dropped to the lowest point in the end zones. It was a unique stadium, but that was still the stadium for Tampa Bay and for the Outback Bowl in 1996. And we beat Auburn in a great game there, but it was played in a pouring downpour the entire game. And one of the tour groups from locally here from State College, their charter flight was leaving later that afternoon, just a couple hours after the game was winding up. Those folks had to go hop straight on their buses at the end of the game in their soggy, wet clothes, go bust directly to the airport, climb onto their charter flight home, never having time to change or warm up or get out of their soaking wet clothes from that downpour. And I still remember in the game itself, Joe Juravicius diving for a touchdown and sliding, 10 yards through the end zone on his belly with the ball in his arms. It was a unique game in many ways, but it was unfortunate. That was the one bad weather game that we had at the Outback Bowl. The other 3 have been fine, and the other 3, and they've all been in Raymond James Stadium, which is a beautiful venue, a great venue in which to watch a ball game. Very good sight from any seat in the stadium, and I think it's a great place to play a bowl game.
John, always great to catch up with John Black. It's not often you have the opportunity to be in the presence of a legend, but to hear John kind of recount his story and then from his perspective of being up in the press box with his family, it was a real special moment for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of those truly once in a lifetime moments. As I said, like having his family there was special, knowing how much they've supported him, over the last 40 some years. And even before that, working at the Alumni Association and, meeting VDK and, having worked in the Washington, D.C. area before he returned to Penn State. And yeah, very special moment. And, I think John also holds, a certain level of esteem within the media beat, people stopped, they came over, congratulated John. A bunch of writers got pictures with him after the unveiling of the plaque. And so, yeah, it was just good vibes all around. And like I said, John is a guy who he deserves that moment, and, very happy to see him have it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much for bringing that interview to Football Letter Live and for us getting the opportunity to catch up with John. Alumni will have the opportunity to catch up with John. If you're going to the Outback Bowl, John Black will be there to write his final letter as the editor of the Penn State football letter. And so if you are in Tampa, make sure you get the chance to take the chance and the opportunity to say hello to John and to thank him for his service. Now, I'm not sure if people caught what he was saying, but he did this for most of his time as the editor as a volunteer. Right, John didn't get paid for all of his service as the editor of the football letter. John did it out of truly a love for Penn State, and so we're so grateful for all that John and his family have done for Penn State.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're sharing that news. We've just put out a blog story tonight, just letting folks know that John is stepping down, so that alumni can really embrace the opportunity to say thank you and share your moments with John. Share your photos of you with John. You can share them here, during the live stream, and we'll throw them up on the screen. We're also going to be putting together some things leading up to the Outback Bowl that we can share. But yeah, it's important to note John's going to the Outback Bowl. He's looking forward to it. Like we said, he's going to, write the letter from the standpoint of somebody he knows the entire history of Penn State at the Outback Bowl. And even in the interview, like very, modest, just kind of saying, yeah, I'm stepping down. It wasn't a big announcement. It was, very much in the style and approach that you would expect from John. And but again, just really want to give the alumni an opportunity to thank John, as we have done many times over in recent times.
Absolutely. And another big piece of John Black's legacy from when he was a staff member at the Alumni Association was John was one of the original staff members that helped put Lion Ambassadors together. And our next guest, who's going to join us here in just a minute, was certainly someone who benefited from that program during his time here at Penn State.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to bring Coach Fly on, Matt Fleischacker. He was a graduate assistant with the football team here at Penn State from 2012 to 2015, working with the linebackers and defensive backs. As Paula said, he was a Lion Ambassador in school. We're certainly going to ask him about that. Currently, Coach Fly serves as the co-defensive coordinator and outside linebackers coach at Hobart College in Geneva, New York. Hobart had a really great season this year, going 9-2, and notably for Matt as the co-defensive coordinator, Hobart held 5 teams to single digits, 2 shutouts, 2 other games where they allowed only 3 points. And so Coach Fly knows what he's doing. He's got a proven track record. He's going to talk about his time at Penn State working with both Coach O'Brien and Coach Franklin. We know that he's close with Brent Pry, and so we're going to ask him about all that and more. Matt Fleischacker, Coach Fly, welcome to Football Letter Live, sir. We're happy to have you.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me on. It's good to be here.
Matt, as you were going through your high school career and you were looking at universities, what was it about Penn State that drew you here and said, this is the school for me?
Yeah, well, my older brother went to Penn State. My older brother, Adam, went there. Kind of when we were kind of looking at that and visited Penn State, I fell in love with it. I always knew I wanted the big football feel, had aspirations to kind of play in college at some point, knew it probably wasn't going to happen. But I did tell my parents that I was going to find my way on the field somehow. And, looking at what was going on during my time, that was actually my freshman year was Bill O'Brien's first year, a lot of uncertainty in the program. But it was the best decision I ever made. Penn State, it just felt like home when I got there. Everything about it, from the stadium just to the downtown, just to the feel around campus. Everything was really just, it was the perfect fit for me, which kind of, honestly, looking back on it, it's definitely the best decision I ever made.
So, Matt, you said you had aspirations to play college football, right? Those aspirations were maybe a little unfulfilled, but you found a way to get involved with the Nittany Lion program as an undergraduate and then came back as a graduate student. Talk a little bit about the beginning of that journey as an undergraduate assistant coach.
Yeah, for sure. It's not an easy thing to do to get your foot in the door, and I really didn't know how I was going to do it. I joined the sports business club at Penn State, which was in the first year of its existence, my freshman year. And I walked in there and they said they were doing, they had information on the sports internship, recruiting internship. Didn't really give much information, but I knew it was with the football team. So I went to that meeting, ended up interviewing there. I got the job as a recruiting intern, had no idea what I was doing. I was interviewed by Bill Cavanaugh, who's now the head coach at Bentley University up in Boston. Coach Cavanaugh are still really close to this day, but I just kind of ended up stumbling upon that flyer in the hub one day, and I went over there and I knew football was my passion. But then I kind of, as I think we'll talk about here in a little bit, that thing just kind of kept growing, and the fire inside my belly just kept kind of burning with it. And as soon as I got the job, I was in there, and you really couldn't take me out of the Lash building. Everything about it was just, it fit perfectly with what I wanted to do. It was more recruiting my first couple of years, helping Coach O'Brien and his staff evaluate players. I had the New Jersey, Eastern PA region that I would watch their high school film, give a couple scouting reports, my thoughts. And I was like, I don't know why they're worried about what I'm thinking. But when you think about it, Bill O'Brien was used to having a big scouting department at the NFL level. So that's what he was trying to mimic at the college level. It was me and about 4 other undergraduates that we kind of divided and conquered. And then every Sunday night we'd have a debriefing meeting going over exactly what we kind of saw, what we thought. And all we did was just give them names, give them our honest opinions. And then it kind of went from there. But as I was in that building, as I was watching what those coaches were doing on a daily basis, the kind of influence they had on the student athletes, and honestly, the kind of influence Bill O'Brien had on the entire university and State College as a whole. That's exactly what I said. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but this is what I want to do. And kind of parlayed that a little bit when Coach Franklin came aboard. And that's when I kind of went into the whole coaching aspect thing. Just kind of got lucky there. I walked into his office and I asked if that was something that could be done. And I got put with the defense with Brent Pry. Will Wyndham was a graduate assistant at the time, who's now the inside linebackers coach for South Alabama. They put me with them, and the rest is history. Every single year, I got more and more trust from this coaching staff. As my junior year went to my senior year, I would travel with the team. I was up in the coach's box, and it just kept growing. And that's all. Just kept working hard, put my head down, just did what I had to do to help out, bring as much value as I could each and every day, and just really fell in love with the game and fell in love with the profession.
When you talk about transitioning from recruiting to coaching, how did that transition go for you? Was it somewhat of a natural transition given how involved you were? And, once you started working with student athletes directly on the field, how did you develop your passion and how did you improve as a coach early on?
Absolutely. I did not, I'll be the first one to admit, the first day I was in the linebackers room with Coach Pry when I was a junior in college. And I mean, granted at the time, Mike Hull was a senior. Mike Hull was the Big Ten linebacker of the year that year. And I'm sitting in the room and I'm just trying to absorb as much information, be a sponge, learn everything I possibly could from Coach Pry, and honestly from some of the players as well. At that time, those players were unbelievable players, from Naeem Wortman to Brandon Bell, all of those linebackers. But I think the number one thing that stood out to me was how welcoming they were and how awesome it was that they were able, that I was able to see the influence Coach Pry had on those linebackers. When I was learning, I just kept taking as many notes as I could. Every single time I was in the staff room, I would sit in the back corner, I would work the film on the computer, and I'd be writing as much as I could in my notebook. I knew I wasn't going to get a question asked to me. No one really cared about my opinion at the time when I'm an undergraduate student. I'm just trying to learn from all the coaches there. At the time, it was Coach Shoup, it was Terry Smith, Sean Spencer, the whole defensive staff, they became like a second family to me. I was there bright and early in the morning. I would leave to go to class. I'd come right back. But everything I did was just taking notes and learning from these guys. I didn't want to interrupt a single thing. I just wanted to learn as much as I could. Then when we got on the field at practice, I would help Coach Pry set up the drills. I would learn what the drills were. I would learn how they're kind of intertwined with what he's asking them to do on the field. And then as I get to my senior year, I started learning a lot more about how this all kind of impacts the entire defense. And long story short, the linebacker drills I do with my guys at Hobart are the exact same drills that Coach Pry has done every single time I've been with him as a linebackers coach. So everything I've learned, I'm continuing to put together every single day, and I'm continuing to grow as a coach. And that's where I think it's been really, really beneficial. I've stayed in touch with all of these guys, and we continue to bounce ideas off of each other. I continue to learn from these guys, and just try to do as much as I can to help my players on the field excel at the next level.
Absolutely. Matt, when we were early on in our production meetings for Football Letter Live, we were talking about people that we wanted to have on the show. And normally the format is we have a letterman come on during this segment. But I said, we have to have Matty Fly come on and talk about his journey as a aspiring college football coach, right? Which I think is amazing. You and I have stayed in touch over the years, and from your time at Appalachian State to coming back to Penn State and then down to Mercer and Hobart, people see the coaches, right? And they sign these multi-million-dollar contracts, and everyone thinks that's the life. That's where I want to get to. I want to be in that position. But they don't understand what the grind looks like. So can you kind of take us through from your time as a student assistant here to then when you leave and you start to, you start your career in coaching, and where all the stops that has taken you? I think I even missed one. I know you were down in Allentown for a while as well, down at Muhlenberg.
Yeah, so I've definitely gotten used to packing up a U-Haul truck and hitting the road and moving on to the next stop. But so overall, as soon as I graduated Penn State with my degree, Coach Pry and that staff, like I said, as a second family to me, they really helped me find that next place where I was going to go. I remember I saw on footballscoop.com that Appalachian State had lost their graduate assistant. He went to take a full-time job somewhere. And I texted Coach Pry immediately. And I said, do you know anybody at Appalachian State? And he responded, yes. And then it was just silence. And I'm just waiting. I was like, does that mean you're going to contact them? And next thing I know, a couple of days later, I had a call from the defensive coordinator, Nate Woody. I had a voicemail on my phone because we were out at practice at the time. And I remember coming back into the office, running after practice, saying, hey, Matt, this is Nate Woody. I'd love to bring you down to interview you. And the first thing I did was I called him back and I said, yes, doesn't matter what time, what place, I'm there. It ended up I actually went down there on my birthday, missed a couple spring practices at Penn State, went down there, interviewed at App State, and that's it. I left. I went right back, and I was like, I'm probably not going to get this job. And that process kind of took a little bit. No reason really why they might have, it was going to take a lot to take a chance on a 22-year-old that was still in college at the time. But as soon as I graduated, Coach Woody ended up calling. I believe it was around Memorial Day weekend, and he said, "Hey, Matt, let's do it. The job's yours if you want it." And I immediately said yes. And I didn't know when I was going to go down there. I didn't know how I was going to get down there. But next thing I knew, I was packing up my 2009 Honda Civic and driving down to Boone, North Carolina, to join Coach Satterfield and his staff down there at App State. And it was great. I had a great experience there. I was only there for 8 months. We won a conference title, but I saw the type of program they had there. It was an unbelievable, historic program from all of their national championships at the FCS level. And then the transition they had made successfully to the FBS level was something that was incredible. I could not have landed at a better spot right out of college. It was definitely hard work, as you guys were just alluding to before. It was something that, there's some late nights, early mornings. But that's what it takes to become successful, not only in this profession, but to become successful as a football team. We know what type of energy and effort we're asking our players to put in. So if we don't do the same as coaches, then to me, it's doing a disservice to all of our players, because they're counting on us to have that game plan ready to go, to put those guys in the best possible position to be successful. So anywhere when someone talks about the grind, I don't usually like using that word, because to me, it's not a grind when when I wake up every morning and I'm excited to go out there and coach, and I'm excited to go be with my guys. I'm excited to game plan and figure out the best possible way to stop the opposing team's offense. That's what it's all about for me. So is it long hours? Absolutely. Is it, part of a social life that hurts a little bit? Sure. But at the end of the day, us as coaches, we do this because this is what we love to do. We love to help our players achieve their dreams, and we're also competitive. I'd be lying to say if I don't hate losing. I think I might hate losing more than I love winning, which is kind of messed up to say, but I love it. I love the season. But yeah, so kind of going back to what you guys were saying, after App State, I had all intentions to be there for another year. It just so happened that both GAs, graduate assistants at Penn State, Ryan Smith and Andrew Jackson, both moved on. And I remember I was down at the convention and I saw Coach Pry, who was the defensive coordinator then at Penn State. And he said, come on, we don't need to interview you. We know who you are. You know us. You know how things are done around here. If you're interested in coming back, the job's yours. And I jumped on it. Again, 23 years old, went right back to Penn State, my home, where I graduated. Still obviously had a ton of friends there. It was a seamless transition for me. It really was. So I went back there for 2 more years. First year, I worked with the linebackers again with Coach Pry, this time as a full-time graduate assistant. And then the next year, talking to Coach Pry and talking to the rest of the staff, we moved me back more to the back end with Coach Banks, Tim Banks, who's now down at Tennessee as the defensive coordinator. And I worked with the safeties, which was an awesome experience, continuing to grow my knowledge of football, continuing to broaden my horizons, which is only going to help as I move forward in my career. Had a great experience for those 2 years. Obviously, again, as we talked about at App State, a lot of long hours, a lot of short nights of sleep. We got home really late, woke up really early. But again, we do it because we love it. We do it because this is what it takes to be successful on Saturdays. And this is what it takes to get our players to be successful. And to me, that's what's most important. So again, had all purposes to stay a third year at Penn State. Graduate assistants can stay a third year as long as you're still pursuing your master's degree, which I was at the time. Just so happened that Bobby Lamb, who was the head coach at Mercer at the time, had a few connections in there with the defensive coordinator, Mike Adams, who was really good friends with Coach Pry. They kind of contacted each other and said, hey, we're looking for a full-time outside linebackers coach. Do you have anybody you think that would be interested? I remember Coach Pry called me right up, asked if this was something that I'd be interested in pursuing. And the first thing I did was I asked his opinion. There's nobody I trust more than Coach Pry at that point. And he said, for your career at this point, you hadn't had much actual coaching, where you're the position coach, and this could be a really good opportunity. So I interviewed, ended up getting the job, ended up accepting the job. And next thing I knew, I was packing my stuff up and moving down to Macon, Georgia. Was a long trip down there, but I went on down there and I have to say I did have a good experience. We didn't have the best record. And unfortunately, Coach Lamb was let go after our first year. But I'll tell you, it was an unbelievable learning experience for me. Moving to a new place where I didn't know anybody, really getting to see a whole new staff, getting away from my roots, kind of, almost cutting the umbilical cord a little bit and getting away from the Penn State, safety net, I kind of called it, and kind of starting to grow my own name in the profession. I had a great group of guys that I was working with, had a lot of fun down there. But at the end of the year, as I said before, Coach Lamb was let go. And then I had some decisions to make, and I had to find out where that next step was going to be. Unfortunately, that was also when kind of COVID hit. This was 2019 going into 2020. So there was kind of a hiring freeze going on. So I was, everything was up in the air. And then as you just said before, Paul, I did have a quick stop in Allentown, PA. Nate Millen, the head coach at Muhlenberg College, who I've become really, really good friends with at this up until through this entire thing. He offered me a part-time job. He said, Matt, listen, I know this is not what you're looking for. You deserve a full-time job. You're more qualified than any kind of part-time coach we might have, but we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you work with our defense. At the time, Muhlenberg had just gone to the Final Four in Division III football. And I said, absolutely, let's go. Let's do it. Didn't know what was going to really happen, but I loved working with those guys. Most of my meetings with those players were over Zoom at the time. So it was kind of a little bit of an interesting dynamic where I'm meeting these guys, but it's all over Zoom. I never even really got a chance to meet them face to face, because as that was about to approach our first season, which did end up getting canceled because of COVID, Hobart College ended up being looking for a full-time coach on the defensive side of the ball. Long story short there, Nate Millen played at Hobart. So he contacted our head coach, Kevin DeWall. They played together, and that's what kind of got this marriage going on, where I ended up being hired up at Hobart. So if I didn't take that job at Muhlenberg, I'm not sure if I'm at Hobart right now. I don't know where I'm at, but I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason, and that's what got me to where I am today. And I could not be happier with where I'm at. As you guys said before, I appreciate what you said about what we did on defense this year. Super proud of my guys at Hobart. We had a great year, 9-2. But if you ask a single guy in our locker room, we're not satisfied. Unfortunately, at 9-2, we didn't win our conference. We didn't get a chance to go to the NCAA playoffs. We did go to a bowl game, which brought me back down to Pennsylvania. We beat Westminster College 21-3 in the ECAC bowl game. But at the end of the day, that fire is still burning right now, because there's a lot of unfinished business that we didn't get to take care of on our front up at Hobart. So we're ready to get going right after winter break, and we can't wait to get this thing back rolling.
I think we have some highlights to run from that stout Hobart defense.
Oh, boy.
And they're coming, it looks like, with a big blitz. They bring it. He's back to throw, steps up, fires off his back foot, and it is intercepted. Picked off at the 43-yard line by Jared Leak. He got up in the air in front of the receiver and picks it off.
Love it.
Look at those great uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we're out there. Fresh. We're the best looking team.
Goes Watts is the running back. Ford's up on the line of scrimmage. Marinelli has the snap. Back to throw. Marinopoulos down the middle. Intercepted. It's picked up the 35-yard line. Down immediately is Brian.
That won the game right there.
Does it again.
That won the game right there.
Is Gote, and takes a one-step drop. He's flushed out, and it's actually Dupuis again. Chase ball stripped. It's stripped. Picked up by Hobart, and they'll have it at the 16. Isaiah Boone had it. It bounced off his chest, and another Hobart player falls on it at the 16. It was Dupuis, the backup, back in the game.
Yeah, it was a fun year, man. It really was. That last clip right there, that was Emmett Ford. He was a reigning first-team All-American outside linebacker. He was named our Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. Just got named first-team All-Region, and we'll find out here in a couple weeks if he's going to get any more All-American accolades. But he was a pleasure to work with. All those guys were incredible to work with. Could not be more proud of our group. Those guys were awesome. I tell a lot of people this, and I mean it wholeheartedly. This was the most fun I've ever had in my short career so far coaching. Those guys came to work every day, did whatever we asked, and they just wanted to continue to get better and go and do whatever they could to win. And it was great.
So we want to ask you about Brent Pry, because you mentioned his name a couple of times. Before we do it, you talked about being busy in the classroom while you were in school. Also worth noting, Matt earned his master's in educational leadership from Penn State this past summer. And so always love to shout out accolades off the field. And so I don't know how you fit in all those studying with the late nights and the long drives, but obviously you find a way to do it. But Brent Pry, you've mentioned him a couple of times as you talked about, moving forward in your career. We understand that you've got a strong bond with him. How did that bond develop over the years? And can you speak a little bit to the impact that Brent has had in your career?
Honestly, I can't say enough about Brent Pry and his wife, Amy, and their whole family. They really are kind of a whole second family to me. Whether it was Thanksgiving or anything else, I would always be at their house. But Coach Pry was the one that really took me under his wing when I was a junior in college. Didn't really know what I didn't know. He was able to be there for me every step of the way. He was hard on me for sure. But at the end of the day, I always knew that he had my back, whether it was giving me advice, whether it was helping me out, whether it was just talking. There was plenty of times where I would just sit in his office and me and him would just kind of talk about what was going on, on the field, off the field, anything. He's really been a great mentor for me. And with him just getting the head coaching job at Virginia Tech, I know how much that place means to him. And there's nobody that fits that job more than Brent Pry. I kind of look at it. He always talks about his relationship with Bud Foster, who was the legendary defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech for a long, long time. When Coach Pry was a graduate assistant there, he looked up to Coach Foster, and he did whatever Coach Foster needed. And his entire career, he kind of, I think he almost mimicked what he needed to do to become Coach Foster, which I think made this decision for Coach Pry, a dream come true for him to go to Virginia Tech. And I really look at him the same way. I bet he looked at Coach Foster at that time. Almost every single week this past year, we would exchange text, whether it was good luck before the game, awesome job. He's always been someone that's had my back no matter what's going on. When I was going through that transition phase between Mercer and when I ended up at Muhlenberg and Hobart, Coach Pry was a great resource for me. He's been fired before in his career, and look where he's at now. So, it's a tough business, but I think when you really have somebody like I have Coach Pry as a mentor and someone to look up to, it's an unbelievable feeling to know that that guy is always there for you and will always give you his honest advice, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether I agree with it or not. Coach Pry has always been there for me, and I can't thank him and his entire family enough for that.
Well, hey, Matt, we want to thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live. We are out of time here. I don't know if you can hear the noise in the background, but Lion ambassadors are getting ready for their general meeting starting here at 8 o'clock. I know you remember those days well. We're going to have you back on the show. And I hope when you're signing those big 6 and 7 and 8 figure contracts that you remember that Football Letter Live was the first show to have you on back here at Penn State.
Hey, guys, I can't say thank you enough. It's awesome what you guys are doing for Penn State every single day. Proud alumni, no matter where I'm at in this country. And, thank you guys enough, and I'll come back anytime. So appreciate you guys. Hopefully I'm thinking about getting down to Tampa for the bowl game. So if I'm down there, I've got family down there. Hopefully I'll be able to catch up and see you guys as well.
That would be great. Matt, we're proud of you. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks, you.
Matt, appreciate you.
Take care. Well, that's a guy who's going places, right? He talked about the stories that Brent Pry tells about Bud Foster, right? Matt's going to be telling those stories about Brent Pry someday. And at the same time, we'll be doing it for somebody else, right? Bringing them along with him as and mentoring them so that they can have those opportunities. Great interview. I can't wait to see where his career takes him.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely need to have him back. I told him he's got to trademark Coach Fly. I mean, but yeah, I mean, to your point, it speaks to the power of mentorship, in any field. And when you've had a powerful mentor in your life, you understand that you want to give back. And yeah, no doubt Matt will be doing that as he moves forward in his career even more.
Absolutely. Speaking of a guy who's going places, we have I see him shaking his head. Our producer, Vincent Longaro, is with us. Vincent, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Paul. I feel like your intro gets more and better and better each week. So I appreciate it.
All right. Well, hey, bowl preview is up on the blog. A number of things going on the blog. What is going on? What do you want to talk about? Let's just say, Vincent, this is your segment. Talk.
It's my segment. Well, the preview for the bowl isn't up yet. It'll be out early next week.
Okay.
But definitely look for that. But as always, John has been putting a lot of great content out there. He's got a great story on James Franklin's contract renewal that's on the blog. And as you guys mentioned earlier, a great piece on John Black and this being his last season with the Football Letter. And just sharing about John myself. I remember it was probably my first month on the job here, and he found out that I had worked for the Collegian, so he had to come over and talk to me about his Collegian experiences, and then obviously, that means a lot. Obviously, John Black is a living legend as someone who grew up wanting to be a sports writer. That meant a lot for me, and I'm so appreciative of what just in the short few time that I've been here that I've been able to learn from him and get to work with him and things like that. So obviously appreciative of that. So go check out that story on the blog. And we also have a great story on Jason Kabinda, who was nominated for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award by the Lions, and just kind of the impact he's had in the Detroit community. So a lot of great stuff on the blog as always. There's no off season for the Football Letter blog. So we'll have great stuff in between now and the bowl and after that as well.
Thanks, Vince. Men's and women's basketball are their seasons are now in full force. The wrestling program is off and running back to their winning ways again. And they're winning with some new faces in the lineup. I know they've been hit by the flu bug and some injury bugs, but they continue to roll the next state champion out into the lineup. And those guys are taking advantage of their opportunities. So a lot of great things going on in Penn State athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Paul, you can probably talk about wrestling a lot better than I can, but yeah, absolutely. It seems like even if someone's out for Cale Sanderson, he always finds someone else that's going to go out there, and they may not always win, but they're going to compete, and they're going to get Penn State, the depth that they need to win another national title. And it looks like that's going to be a real possibility this year again. And then, yeah, as he kind of touched on it, men's and women's basketball, both have gone through some rough patches this year, but obviously I think both of those programs have a really bright future. And I think how hard those teams play is a reflection of both of their coaches. They may not be the most talented team on the court every single night, but they're definitely going to compete. And I think that's a great reflection of both of those coaches.
Absolutely. Well, we had originally planned for this to be the season finale, for this to be the ending of our Football Letter Live season. But we're going to bring one more show to you when we go on the road down to Tampa for the Outback Bowl. We're going to have a show on site there. We're still pulling the details together. Hope to get a bunch of lettermen and some of our great volunteers again to highlight their stories. But John, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the volunteer experience, and I'm looking forward to an on-site Football Letter Live when we go down to the Outback Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of camaraderie on these bowl trips. And so, what makes the volunteer event even more special is that, we partner with the opposing team's alumni association. And so we're partnering with Arkansas. It's a beach cleanup day. We'll go down there for a couple of hours and camaraderie, on-site show. John Black will be there and covering the Outback Bowl. So we'll look forward to his insight. Volunteer event, pep rally, New Year's Eve parade. It's just going to be a lot of good times. A lot of stories are going to be shared in Tampa. And so hopefully we see a whole lot of you at the end of the month in Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. Well, we won't see you until after the holiday season is over. So happy holidays to everybody. Make sure you're checking out the Football Letter blog. That's at thefootballletter.com. Check us out on Twitter at PSUFBletter. That's on Twitter at PSUFBletter. Thank you so much for your support throughout the season. And thanks for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.